Hi, this is Sean Fenske, Editor-in-Chief of MPO, and I'm back once again with Alan Grau, VP of Embedded and IoT at Sectigo. How you doing today, Alan?
I'm doing well. Thanks, John.
So, as people have noted, we're talking about cybersecurity. We're talking about medical device, data and the security of these devices and hacking. And a few years ago, we saw a television program called Homeland, where I believe it was the vice president. He had a pacemaker, and in the show, terrorists hacked the pacemaker and induced a heart attack. And Alan, what are the odds, or what are the chances of something like that actually happening?
Well, I don't think it's unrealistic. Rumors that I heard at the time were that Dick Cheney had a pacemaker, and he had the connectivity on it disabled for exactly that reason. Because there is some chance of that, and the in that scenario, I think that could happen, and I don't know that you could ever actually. It certainly would be very difficult to trace it back to whether it was a cyber attack or a device that simply malfunctioned. So I think it could have happened or could happen, and no one would be able to prove, or at least find it very difficult to prove for sure what had happened. And I can remember being at a talk, and it was, I can't think of who it was. It was one of the former Joint Chiefs of Staff that was talking at a large security conference, or not Chief of Staff, but um, on the military side, a former general, and he was talking about cybersecurity, and he says it's really easy to tell in conventional warfare. If a tank rolls up and starts shooting at you, it's easy to tell whether it's a German tank or a Russian tank or whose tank it is. And with cyber attacks, it's much more difficult to attribute who the attack came from.
Right.
And there's methods of doing so, but some of the nation state hacking groups will try to obfuscate that as well, and they'll insert Chinese language comments into the malware that's being produced by a Russian hacking group and vice versa. So a long answer to that's definitely a realistic scenario, for sure. And we've seen a large number of flaws in medical devices that could leave them vulnerable to cyber attacks. You know,
Yeah,
um,
I was going to say that was a fictional attack. So whether or not it was plausible or not is you probably find a debate on that. But can you share with us some real attacks or some real instances of medical device hacks?
yeah, no, there've been quite a few. I mean, there's been some implantable cardio defibrillators that were recalled, or I don't know if they were recalled, but in 2019, the FDA issued a warning about cybersecurity vulnerabilities in implantable defibrillators. So that is leads back to the specific scenario. Um, but I know Medtronic's had some insulin pumps that were wearable that they had a recall on due to cybersecurity concerns in those, and that was in 2019. And shortly after that, Johnson and Johnson also had some defibrillator or some insulin pumps that had cybersecurity concerns that they had announced and were working to resolve. So we've seen that in wearable and implantable medical devices, we have seen very clear cybersecurity issues, and some of those did allow full device takeover. So a hacker that was able to hack into the device could have complete control of the device.
Right.
So, and then we've just seen some broad vulnerabilities. There's, one example of that. There was a set of vulnerabilities called Ripple 20 that was announced probably about a year ago, maybe a little longer. But it was a TCP/IP stack that was used in embedded systems and IoT devices, and this gets into kind of the supply chain, dynamics in IoT devices, where a small company that made an IoT or made a TCP/IP stack and then sold it through OEMs, sold it through other real-time operating system vendors through a very large supply chain, and ended up in millions and millions of devices, and then years later was found to have some vulnerabilities, and many of those were in medical devices.
Mhm.
Somebody had done just a scan and had a database of devices where they were able to scan and fingerprint over 50,000 different medical devices that had the TCP/IP stack in
Wow.
question running in it. Now, not all of those would have had the vulnerability because at some point in time, the company had discovered the flaws and fixed the flaws, but still a large percentage of those would have vulnerabilities in them. So some of the vulnerabilities are quite pervasive.
And has the medical device industry gotten serious enough about cybersecurity with these incidents?
I think they're making a lot of progress. The FDA has issued their guidance for cybersecurity for medical devices, and really are pushing companies to be much more serious about building cybersecurity into devices. So we're seeing better testing. We're seeing companies, a number of companies, including I believe both Medtronics and Johnson, and a half a dozen others, have come together to create a vulnerability reporting program so that if there is a vulnerability, they've agreed that they would report it, so that people were aware and could take action to
Right.
to mitigate the vulnerability.
Well, great. Appreciate the discussion. For more on the development and manufacture of medical devices, please visit mpomag.com. But until next time, this has been Sean Fenske, editor in chief of MPO, speaking with Alan Grau, VP of Embedded and IoT at Sectigo. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, John.